For the first time in my life, I'm truly free to see the clear-cut forest for the poison sea, to see the waters occupy the shores of Jersey, and I feel alive.
Isn't this just grand?
It is.
It's a grand day, and it is a grand day of we are finally. Discord got mad at me. It is finally a day that we are out of Zoom. We are not using Zoom anymore.
We finally escaped it, and we've hit our 20th episode.
20th episode using Zencaster, and we still have 13 subs. We are working way too hard, aren't we?
That's fine. It'll ramp up.
It is fine. We are chilling. Now, I said we were doing Sub-Saharan Africa, but I'm going to be quite honest. That one was so complicated. That's going to be like 18 episodes. But
Yeah.
This one, starting something small, kind of our first intro to water terrorism politics, is how droughts in Iraq fuel terrorism, namely that of ISIS.
Yeah.
But we have news.
Yeah.
So the news is twofold. Do you want to guess what this is? This young man.
I assume there's troubles in Ukraine.
There for the fucking 18th time in the last 30 years. Yes, there are troubles in Ukraine. So I consider myself a fairly intelligent individual. What the fuck's going on?
To be honest, I could not tell you. The entire conflict has been building on itself for the last 30 years, and I can't really catch up.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think America's going to get involved in this because you can't sell this war to the American people. No one really knows why it's happening. Like 9/11 in like Iraq, Afghanistan, that was easy to sell because
yeah, that was
9/11,
obvious.
like it was a very obvious, very public killing of however many thousand American people. This is some conflict that you don't really quite get that's happening in an area that doesn't really affect us, that has disastrous implications if it is to happen. So I'm going to say the same thing that I said with Afghanistan. It was never our fight.
A lot of these wars were never our fight.
Yeah, we can't go around being the police them of the world, acting with impunity.
No matter how much people with yellow tinted glasses want us to be.
Yellow tinted glasses?
The hunting goggles you get at every gas station ever.
Interesting.
Anyway, I hope you know what I'm talking about.
I don't. I'm sorry.
The ones people with lifted trucks wear.
Okay, the whole principle of a lifted truck is that you can't see the people in the lifted truck. Like they don't want you to know how tiny of a penis they have, so that's why.
It's so you can't see them kissing their children on the lips.
Wait. I might edit that out. We're probably gonna get canceled for that.
Oh my god.
So no, I never thought it was the children thing. Whoa. Is my screen still sharing?
Yeah, you just took the lid off of your podcast.
Well, I gotta have my laser pointer. You know, eventually I'm gonna figure out how to John Madden up the place. I think I need to be on a Microsoft PowerPoint to do that. But I really want to. But so it's been a relatively clear week over the West Coast, so we were able to get some views for probably the first time this wet season. It's looking pretty green.
Yeah.
Sierras are looking pretty full of snow. Not as full as they could be. Right now we're sitting at about 60% of normal for a normal wet year. And
certainly an improvement over what we've had.
Yes, last year was something like 30% of normal for the entire season, and we're only about halfway through the wet season, so we're sticking pretty good. We could definitely use one more big storm in March to get things to 100, but however many good news that we've had throughout the last month, this is nowhere near making up the deficit. There's like 20-30 feet of snow deficit to even get back to normal at this point, but it's a step in the right direction. It's not going to be last year where it was farmers suffering, everyone suffering, and wildfires suffering even more. It'll be better than last year, and I think that's the main takeaway. We were doing the thing with Psychic last week, so I wasn't quite able to say this, but I subscribe to the LA Times because I'm a filthy leftist, and they have a newsletter called Boiling Point, which is just kind of like updates on climate change. I would highly recommend it. But anyway, they had something at the end of the year, and it's climate change remains stubbornly uncathartic. Like, there will never be a point at which we know that we've either won or lost. Every year that we improve, there will be slightly more suffering than there should have been, but slightly less than there could have been.
Yeah. It's
That's kind
not a
of the
battle of wins and losses. It's a battle of continuous, you know.
yeah. That's the thing. It's such a it's not like any war we've ever experienced where it's, and that's the problem I think with the American spirit is the American people love to know that they've won, and they want everyone else to know that they've won. That's you can blame that on Vietnam, you can blame that on the World Wars, you can blame it on pretty much anything, but we love the knockout. Like, we want to know that we've won, and with climate change, that's something that really can't happen.
Yeah.
So America, wisen up. We really got to figure out how to go on more tangents, don't we?
Yeah. It's fine. You'll get there.
Do you have any tangent ideas?
Right now, not really. Let's see what we got cooking.
Oh, there's plenty. So, this is what's the deal with Iraq? I this is extremely poorly translated. Literally, it is what is the deal with what is going on in Iraq?
Oh my god.
I translated it word for word in Arabic because I was like too scared to do the whole thing because I didn't want to say something offensive, but now it just sounds really bad. So, what happens in Iraq?
A lot of things. Let's see. The main export is confusing world conflict. The main import is Toyota trucks. And
anyway, moving on. So I was originally going to make this episode on Iraq, so I had the punchline. How do you get to how did I get to Iraq, which was Iran, but how did I get to Iraq? I don't know. So this is a map. It's from BibleStudy.org. The problem is it's really quite a good map of the area, but I guess thanks to BibleStudy.org for this very good map. So this is Iraq. This is Baghdad. I saw this article, and it was like a fake article, and it was why Baghdad should be on every solo female traveler's bucket list.
oh my god.
The comment was like, did human trafficking write this?
Yeah.
And then there's Mosul, there's other cities you may have seen on the news.
I thought they put a little exclamation point under Jerusalem.
I didn't there's that could be okay.
That can be interpreted in a few different ways.
So you watch Top Gear, right?
I've watched a few episodes, yeah.
So there's this special where they have to buy a sports car, and then they have to get to Jerusalem because they're like the three wise men from the east. So, but the producers didn't tell them where they were starting. Guess where they started?
Where?
Somewhere around here.
Oh my god.
Mind you, this was in like 2010. So like this was, I'm looking this up. When was the Top Gear Middle East? Yeah, December 26, 2010. So somewhere around there. So they started here and they're like, okay, this area is like infested with ISIS, so we can't go there. They were like, maybe we should go through Baghdad. And then Clarkson was like, I don't know if there's this television program that you might have heard, but it's the news. We probably shouldn't go through there. So they ended up going to Turkey. And the producers told them, you idiots, you went from somewhere where there isn't a war to somewhere where there is a war.
Oh my god.
They bought Hammond, like a lighter a lighter in the shape of like a 50 cal anti-tank round, and they found it at customs, and of course it was like the plainclothes guys with assault rifles, customs variety, and they found it, and they were like, "You are funny man," and he didn't know if he was gonna get detained or anything. And then they went around. They went around Aleppo. They went through the desert in Syria because they were too afraid of like people like knowing who they were. And May like fell down and bumped his head like really really hard, and they had to like medevac him from the middle of the desert.
Oh my god.
And then they eventually went through Syria, through to Jerusalem, and the baby Jesus was the Stig. So you don't know who
That's-
the Stig is, do you?
No, I don't.
The Stig is like the stunt driver that's like whose identity is like kept a mystery.
Oh.
So this is Saddam Hussein doing the very famous planking challenge.
Oh yeah.
This is
We should
the
get
love.
I don't know how we would, but we should get that statue and just put it in some building that it really shouldn't be in.
Well,
Like,
no, we can't because they've ripped the legs off.
I mean,
Also,
we can-
Saddam Hussein is really skipping leg day. Like, assuming those are his pants, he's got chicken legs under there.
yeah.
And then this is a lovely beach.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, these
If
are
you're in Gary, Indiana, that's the view across the water.
yes, and then this is Chicago. No, I think this is the opposite. I think you're in Chicago right here, and you're looking southeast at Gary. Because there's always like a thick haze over Gary, like no matter the time of year.
There's a lot of fog on the Lake Michigan, even on a clear day, and it's not fog, it's smog. It's awful.
Yeah, don't kid yourself. I don't know how much Chicago smog how much like smog is produced in Chicago, because there's
Probably
like
less per capita, but more overall.
yeah, but because like most the like pretty much all the electricity is from natural gas, and those are like way out in the boonies, and then I guess there's some coal, but that's further south. Whatever. The point is, these are the things that you need to know before traveling to Iraq, which is at the moment it's probably not that bad. It's I don't know. It's not ranked very high on the global happiness index. It's something like 109.
Yeah, it's conflict. It's exactly what you'd expect.
There's no data for North Korea, presumably because it would rank first by such a high margin that it wasn't even worth. There's no contest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the People's Republic of North Korea. Like it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
go to North Korea and watch Kim Jong Un just golf a perfect 18.
Yes, he golfed a perfect 18. Didn't like Kim Il Sung invent tacos?
Yeah, Kim Il Sung invented the burrito, according to the
Oh,
North
okay.
Korean canon.
All right, moving on. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. So we have Bush Iraq Invasion Challenge Part 1. So if we have lovely a stock photo of father and son on a golf outing. Well, look at the resemblance, though.
They look like the same person.
They do. Like, he looks obviously a little bit older, but
Yeah.
so this is Desert Storm, 1991. The president is Bush. The enemy is Saddam. And what happened in a nutshell is Iraq or Kuwait, I don't remember which one, but they were slant drilling into each other's oil, and that like really pissed off Saddam. And then he invaded Kuwait, and the rest of the world was like, oh, that's not cool. So Desert Storm was basically putting a bunch of people into the desert, and then there was a big storm. The storm was oil fires, because Mr. Hussein, in his infinite wisdom, was like, if I can't have this oil, nobody can. So he blew up the oil as his soldiers retreated. And his ultimate plan was to fill the Persian Gulf right here with a layer of oil and light it up, basically making an impenetrable sea of fire.
Is that good?
No.
I'm very confused on because that's their lake, right?
The Persian Gulf is there
Not,
would be
well, it's in golf, but Isn't that going to harm them?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
quite a.
Saddam Hussein is not a very smart individual. I
I
don't think
think I'm not getting the sense.
that's not a very hot take. So he lit up these, and these were going for a very long time. They clouded up the sky. They looked awful. And if they hadn't been put out, they would be going like this strong, for anywhere between 100 to 500 years.
Wow.
Yes. Burning all the oil and doing about the same damage to the planet as they would coming out of an American's tailpipe. So, good or bad, whatever. The way they put them out was really cool, though. They would strap jet engines to tanks, and then have those jet engines spray ocean water onto the fires.
That's a pretty cool way of handling it.
It's a
That's
cool
like
way of handling it. It was extremely dangerous because once you put out the fire, okay, now there's a huge jet of oil coming out of the ground covering everyone and everything. And if someone like goes for a smoke, everyone's going to die. So then they had to cap them as they were being covered with oil.
I
Good
think
thing it
that
didn't rain, otherwise they would float away.
all of this just reeks of like post Patriot Act military budget.
This was 1991.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
Desert
yeah, I
Storm.
guess it is like that era. We really spend excessive amounts on our military, don't we?
Oh, that the post Patriot Act military funding, that's coming next. So yeah, Desert Storm. That was probably the in my opinion, in my humble opinion, the justified Bush Iraq invasion challenge.
Yeah.
It was Kuwait was getting killed, and you had to do something about these oil wells, but it was still an obvious oil grab for the U.S. But Bush Iraq invasion challenge part 2, not so much. False pretense of WMDs, and they're literally just so Bush could invade for oil and do stuff like this, harm civilians, and then say mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I love so this picture is the last picture in pretty much every U.S. history textbook.
I've seen that picture many, many times.
It is on the last page. And like it depends, because you know if your elementary school they might have like it only goes to Clinton. Like I've seen those. And then, you know, the wealthier middle schools might have had early Obama. And then there's RA push books, which have like early COVID in it.
Yeah. When I was in middle school, my history book, we had two of them because our the ones that the school had paid a ton for and bought like 100 of only went up to Carter. So
Wait,
we
Carter was before Bush won,
Reagan.
right? Oh my god.
And basically what we did was we had a second book that covered Reagan and after. And
How much do you really need
those were
to
the ones
know
that they decided to update, and it was like a much smaller, cheaper book for them to update because, you know, like no one was really changing the precedent of like how people thought about Carter and everyone before.
like middle school US history, you're like barely getting to the Cold War though. Like they spend a lot of time on everything leading up to Reconstruction and then like blaze through everything else.
I've made a bet every single year that we would never get to the Korean War, and I've been right every single year.
Well, no, because they try to cover the same stuff every year. So what mine did is 7th grade was everything up until Reconstruction, and then 8th grade was everything after. So did they just start over with you?
No, we got our split into three. It was in 6th grade, it was everything until 1500.
Yeah,
like
it was
the year
ancient history.
1500. And then 7th grade was like post Renaissance to maybe like Vietnam War era. And then they did an overlap in between 7th and 8th grade of pre World War II to present.
So you're covering the hell out of the Cold War. Really?
We covered the Cold War at least 2 or 3 times.
Okay, because pretty much all I remember is detente, salt, start, and I don't really know what any of them mean.
Yeah, all I remember is guns and butter economic policy.
Guns and butter. Oh right, yeah, guns or butter. It's not guns.
Spending your money on civilians and butter versus spending your money on cool new weaponry and guns.
If you ever want some motivation for the revolution, go to military contracts, like the public military contracts website, and then like watch every day there being like a $3 billion contract with like a huge company for
Yeah.
for like some like thinly veiled like we're trying to blow up as many people as possible with this contract.
Yeah, that's the military. That's what they do.
Yeah, if there's one like I love how they like in those YouTube ads where they try to make it seem like a video game, or the ones where they like just show like what's actually happening. They try to distract so much from the fact that your job is just to kill people.
Yeah.
Like that is just so glossed over.
Wars are fought in a millisecond. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's
you
like
did just bomb someone. I guess that is a
yeah,
millisecond.
it is weird. It is very weird. Although I will say one thing, so the National Guard and like the Marines, they come to our school a lot and like stake out the lunchroom to try to find that like one kid who like looks like they might have a 1.0 GPA and like, hey, do you want to blow some people up? The Marines will never talk to me. I will literally go up to their table, take one of their pens, take the candy that they have, and the two jarheads there won't even look at me. Like they will actively look away from me.
Do you think like if you went up to them and pretended you were gay, you would get referred to the Navy guy?
No, I think they would send me to the reserves.
The reserves, America's second line of defense.
What's the first one?
The army.
See, the National Guard is the one branch of the military that I have genuine respect for because that is genuine, like quelling like domestic terrorism or distributing vaccines or like helping with disaster relief. That's the one branch that has redeeming qualities. It's
Hmm.
not just like to be international policemen.
What about the does that mean you don't feel that way about the Coast Guard?
Coast Guard too. I kind of lumped them in.
Apparently people in the other branches call them the puddle pirates sometimes.
That's good. That's good. My favorite military slang though is probably Jody.
What is Jody?
So a Jody is the imaginary guy who's having relations with your girlfriend or wife while you're deployed.
Oh my god.
So they're like, yeah, Jody's got her or something.
That's terrible.
Have you ever watched the movie Jarhead?
No, I have not.
So it's at the same time a really funny and a really good war movie. So it's kind of the it's Gulf War, and during Desert Storm, the troops on the ground didn't really do much. It was mostly a few well-placed airstrikes and a few like special ops missions. But there were hundreds of thousands of troops in the desert, like kind of just waiting there for something to happen. And Jarhead follows like this one guy, and he's like, he's excited to do something, goes through training, and then's just like sitting in the desert for 5 months. And then like during this entire time, like he's watching like people around them like discover that their like wife or someone is like cheating on them, like relationships falling apart. And then he has like the opportunity to kill one person, and then he loses it because he went there and he didn't do anything, and it was just an airstrike.
Huh.
It kind of leans into some of the war movie stereotypes, like you have like the hard ass drill sergeant and everything,
Yeah.
and it kind of like straight up steals lines from a Full Metal Jacket, but like it's a good movie because it's so different, and that like it's not like a like let's kick some Iraqi ass or like we're in Vietnam or something. It's kind of like showing that like this war was like so different.
Interesting.
Anyway, so this is Iraq's economy. So we got. Have you seen this video?
Is that the dude that jumped in oil?
The long and short of it is, it's this Russian guy who jumped into a pool of motor oil. Was fine. He got out, and then they like power washed him off.
Huh.
This is why I'm not too worried about Russia. Like,
That's
it's just every time I see a video come out of Russia, it's either like an insanely impossible car crash where everyone's just fine, or something like this.
I don't think I've
So,
that's actually a pretty insane video. I don't think I've ever
oh
seen
my
it.
god, it is crazy. Like, I want to know what he's saying, like what he's thinking, like how much did he make, and more importantly, why wasn't he wearing skin tight underwear?
Oh. Huh. How'd they get that much motor oil?
I think it was like I think this is like an industrial processing plant or something. Oh my god.
Dude went into an industrial processing plant and said, "Yeah, I'll take a swim in that."
This is how. So my favorite meme is when it comes out. It's the SCP-106 is broken out of the facility at Gate A. So Iraq, they export. Their 99% of their exports are oil. That's not an exaggeration. That's the actual statistic. And they grow a lot of exotic fruits and vegetables, but mostly for local sale and mostly for subsistence farming. So it's still a super big part of their internal economy, but they're exporting that black gold, baby.
Yeah.
And then there's drought. So it's in the middle of a desert. You got some rivers here. We'll get into that later. But it is hot, and climate change sure isn't helping. Summer averages can get well over 100 degrees or 36 degrees Celsius if you're one of the people who live outside America.
Yeah.
Do people live outside America?
That's
That's up for
I
debate.
can't prove it.
I don't know. I haven't been able to prove it. Reddit tells me that there are. Can't trust them. Top Gear says there are too.
I don't know if you
That's
can trust them either.
that's the BBC. Who knows? Anyway, as of now, and pretty much as of the entire 21st century, Iraq has been in an insane drought, mostly in the southern southwestern region. That's right. So there's Saudi Arabia down there. So a lot of it's the subtropical or dry summer subtropical climate type, if that means anything to you.
That's I mean that means something to me. It doesn't mean much, but it means something.
So it's hot and it's dry. It's
It
in the
means
middle of a desert.
It means that it's expected for it to be ungodly hot.
I don't think I could live in for a variety of reasons. I don't think I could live in Iraq, but mostly like it's an insane temperature fluctuation. Like
Yeah.
January average, like 50 to 100 degrees. It's wild.
Even if everyone living there was old rich white people, which makes it actually it might make it like not much better. But my point is, even if everyone there was like minded, the climate is awful.
Yes, it is dry, and the rivers aren't helping either. So we have a history of extremism in Iraq. So we got this is the Al Qaeda flag and the ISIS flag. So Al Qaeda did 9/11, and then Al Qaeda like pledged allegiance to ISIS or something. I don't know. What I do know is that ISIS at this point is kind of a fringe movement. They don't really have any territory anymore, but it's kind of it's in the minds of a lot of people, and I think that's the scarier part.
Yeah.
It's not a visible threat anymore, but it most certainly is there. They're definitely not at the point where something like a 9/11 could happen again, at least not at this moment, but it's there's a lot of people in Iraq and Syria and so much around there who have that ideology from the war in the 2010s. It's weird stuff. It's weird that like we didn't really think about that because we were kind of in elementary school, but at one point they had occupied a lot of Iraq and most of Syria.
They held a legitimate amount of territory and were a very, very real threat at one point.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know. It's a Sunni extremism for the most part. So I don't know. Like I was reading the Wikipedia for their ideology, which I think got me on like 18 different watch lists. Um, So it may, from what it seems like they think that they are the primary authority of all Muslims everywhere, and that if you're not part of ISIS, you're not a legitimate Muslim in their eyes. Ugh, weird stuff. I'm gonna move on
It's
from this
yeah.
slide. So, more excitingly, Iraq's got a water sitch. So this is gonna be a whole episode on south the Tigris and Euphrates River, but Turkey loves the Tigris and Euphrates River. So starts out in Turkey, goes through Iraq and Syria, and then eventually goes out to the Persian Gulf. Um, Turkey dammed the hell out of it because it loves that water, and basically leaves very little water for people downstream. Again, we covered this with the Nile. It's you're treating a river as an asset that you care about, and you like fuck whoever's downstream from me. They'll just get the piddling excess, instead of treating it as an international asset, which it should be.
Yeah.
You should treat it as such. Everyone gets water security, and that the people with the dams upstream, it's their responsibility to even out the flow. So if it's a huge wet season, people downstream don't get flooded. So that way, Turkey can have its hydropower and some extra water, and then Iraq and Syria can have food to eat.
Totally. We went over it with Egypt and Ethiopia that, you know, it's not really an argument that should be a thing. It's a very, very easy issue to solve if you put aside your differences and focus on policy
Yeah,
and say, if there's more water, we can get more water. If there's less water, then we all get less water. But at the same time, it's in a politician's interest to make their people feel as if, you know, that politician is doing something. And if
yeah,
that means holding back all the water so people stay well quenched during a drought, they'll do it.
the whole compromise is weakness mentality is, bullshit for a lot of reasons, but that's part of it, is just not caring about what happens to any other country.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Zencaster right now. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Might need to turn me up and you down a little bit. Your audio lines are much bigger, but
That's fine. It'll be
are
adjusted.
we're experimenting with a new setup. I wanted to put this at the middle, so if YouTube does decide to watch it, they wouldn't catch on to what we're doing. So the intro and outro music we have, I get copyright striked for literally every single video. And the only reason that they don't take it down is because I say I'm not making any money off of it. So that's all well and good, except they told me the parts that they're striking, and it's only the last clip, the outro music, which is about 30 seconds long. So I trimmed it down to be about 15 seconds long. So we're going to see if we can sneak that in. Do you think it's gonna work? I think it's gonna work. I think
There's a good chance it might work.
It will, because the intro clip's like maybe about 20 seconds long, and the outro clip's about 40 seconds long. And when it said which part of the video they're striking, it's only the last about a minute. I don't know.
Yeah.
This will be an interesting development. But anyway, farming subsidies in Iraq obviously suck. They've been going down for the last 20 years. And then impact of drought on agriculture. In the north, pretty much over half of the farmland is affected substantially by drought. And a lot of the farmland that people are using, that's what they're growing to survive. It's not necessarily for export. So a lot of fruits and vegetables, not necessarily cereal grains.
Yeah.
And then we have Iraq's employment. It's not good. So their unemployment has gone up to about 13.7% at the start of 2020. So I can't imagine what it would be like after the pandemic. But it's been on the rise since 2012. Really, since ISIS started getting really powerful there. But what they've tried to do to alleviate the water situation is desalination, which this is one of the few places in the world that desalination is actually a good idea. And a lot of places in the north where the water situation is really bad because of Turkey damming the Tigris and Euphrates, they can't get any desalinated water, so they need to rely on well water, which is fueled by surface water, which there is none.
Yeah. And I mean, dependence on desalination is kind of a big deal because that means that not only are you dependent on a heavily energy, um, it's a very wasteful process in terms of energy,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also leaving behind that very salty brine that
The brine.
it kind of just destroys your water table if you don't deal with it properly.
Yeah, no bueno. But thankfully, there is Iraq's most stable employer to come to the rescue. So pretty much every drought, what would happen is ISIS would go into the towns, and they're extremely well funded, is the thing. So whether it be from money laundering operations, donations from extremely rich weirdos, they're able to help farmers in the worst way possible. So they'll help feed their families, they'll help get them better equipment for farming, or they'll straight up buy out their farms. And the only catch is you have to come fight for us. So the desperation of not having food, the government not helping you with farming subsidies, uh, Turkey not caring about Iraq, and of course the government just not having any other water sources for you. These people have no options. And when it comes down to their family starving to death, a lot of the times this is the option they would flock to.
That's how a lot of these movements form. They form out of economic and social hardship, and if there's someone that's able to help your family out in a tough time, then I mean, you don't have much of an option.
Yeah, with definitely exceptions, but a lot of people who were fighting for ISIS didn't want to.
Yeah.
It's obviously there's your zealots in every movement, but
There's zealots, there's people in America that identify with it and move there, which I frankly could never understand, but
ugh,
a lot of it is out of necessity.
yeah, it's so weird, and like this is kind of played out in every conflict. Like it's all like with Nazi Germany, like a lot of people didn't want to be there; they were forced to, whether by actual force or out of necessity.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about this a lot more with the China episodes, but that's a continuing theme as well. But anyway, where does this leave climate change? This probably was a very bad photo to use.
That's fine.
I'm looking in the background. Oh, never mind. I thought those people had bags over their heads. Um,
No, it's just kind of like a school yearbook lineup.
Shawls. Okay. Anyway, so as sea level rises, as climates become more unstable, you have lots of people on the move. So I don't know what the figure is, but something like a billion people by the end of the century could potentially need to leave their homes because of climate change for one reason or another. So you have
Yeah.
a lot of people on the move through some of the poorest and most dangerous parts of the world. It's easy for people to get swept up in movements like this. Um, it might not be ISIS. It could be any. It could be any extremist group, any terrorist group looking for vulnerable people to exploit, and that's part of the problem with climate change. That it's also a social issue too. You have people who are vulnerable who have no other option, and especially if they don't have a home to go back to, it's easy for them to be forced into something like this.
Yeah, climate change has such a profound area of how do I describe it? It's got so many effects that are just impossible to even comprehend because you have obviously environmental implications, but then economic and political ones, which lead to social ones, and it's such a big issue. People only ever focus on the environmental aspect, and even though they only focus on that aspect, it's still such a huge issue, not even considering anything else.
Yes. So that is how climate change fuels terrorism. Kind of a downer of an episode, but next week we'll be talking about damming the Strait of Gibraltar in much more detail. I really wanted to cover that one. This one's gonna be really funny.
Wouldn't
So
damming the Strait of Gibraltar cost multiple trillions of dollars and use more concrete than we've created in the entire history of man combined?
yes. Anyway, I have my shout out this week goes to this hot chocolate that I made that I actually have to eat with a spoon.
Your Ned Flanders hot chocolate.
So it's not even hot chocolate anymore. It is actually just a brownie batter. Like I need to chew it.
Yeah, you add brownie batter to your hot chocolate, which is something that I really never thought about doing.
I added way too much brownie batter to my hot chocolate is the problem. It was something like it was probably about half a cup of brownie batter for an 8-ounce hot
Oh my
chocolate.
god, what do you call it? Like the glucosinator?
The glucosinator. That yes.
Yeah.
My blood like is thick right now. It is the consistency of molasses. Like my like I think if I like cut myself on a vein right now, like my blood would like shoot across the room.
Yeah. I that's how I feel right now. I had a Monster Energy and
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a boomer. I like the white Monster Energy and
that is the Boomer Wojak.
it's a very good drink, but like I feel awake, although I feel
You feel
slower.
too awake. It's the Monster High. So my cousin is insanely into energy drinks, and of
Oh,
course, he's a couple years older than me. So when I was younger, it would be like, "Oh, cool! I want to do what my cousin is doing." So I was probably about 7. The lady at the convenience store refused to sell me a Monster Energy, which I don't think is legal.
it's not legal, but morally it's correct.
It was the morally correct thing to do, but anyway, I was like, "Oh well, I'll go somewhere else." I would, of course, the people at Mariano's sold me one. So I got Mariano's. I had the sugar-free one. I didn't sleep that night.
Yeah. Red Bull, oh my god.
Doesn't
Energy
it taste
drinks,
like kind of orange juicy? The sugar-free one?
it's the best way to describe energy drinks if you've never had them is it tastes like orange juice and battery. It tastes like what you would think the inside of a battery would taste like.
For me, it's like orange juice. So you have a 9-volt battery on your tongue, but you're drinking orange juice while you're doing that.
Yummy positively charged ions.
Yes.
Oh my god, I would have Red Bull all the time if it didn't make me feel like my heart was gonna explode.
My favorite is this guy on YouTube trying to make a caffeine-free Red Bull.
Oh, Nile Red. That's my
Yeah.
shout out for this week.
Thank you now, Red, for doing all of the dangerous experiments that I wanted to do when I was young. I really want to I really want to make the superconductor one because I need that for like other things too.
Yeah.
Like that'd be like my favorite thing to do with one would be just to make the worst heat like space heater ever because it's zero resistance to a point. It is an infinitely small amount of resistance. So if I plugged it in, it would not only overload my breaker, but theoretically, if there was no breaker to overload, it would make the most powerful space heater.
I
It would just glow white and put off so
oh my
much heat
God.
and light. It would basically heat the entire room, like with no consequences. Well, of course, it's thousands of
You
degrees.
could also just like get a tower desktop and run Minecraft.
No, you can be like those stupid kids who we go to school with, who are like, I am running my PC 24/7 to mine Ethereum, and my power bill was $400 or something, but that's my parents' money. I made a cool 12 cents or something stupid
People
like
on
that.
their side hustle, yeah.
Oh my god! So my boss today,
Mhm.
asked me about cryptocurrency. Like he didn't quite understand it. And I was like, okay, so when you're a kid and there's like the villain in like the TV show who, because they need to make the villain is one-dimensionally bad as possible in the kids shows, they'll have like the villain setting up this factory that's just a polluting factory. It doesn't produce anything. It just, all you know is that it makes the bad guy money and it just pollutes.
That's crypto.
That is literally cryptocurrency. We're
That's
not
me
con-
using enough energy to power a fridge for a month in order to sell an NFT.
and like yeah, this is how I describe NFTs. So imagine that you're seeing the Mona Lisa at the Louvre and you're like, wow, I want to buy the Mona Lisa. And you ask the curator and he's like, no, we can't do that. But what we can do is there's a janitor's closet behind the Mona Lisa. And inside the janitor's closet, there's a plaque. Um, and if you pay me $11 million, I will burn down an unspecified amount of the Amazon rainforest and I will engrave your name in the plaque. But you can't see the plaque. You just have to take it on good faith that that's what I did. And then you'll be listed as thousands of people who've also done that as the owners of the Mona Lisa. Except it's still staying here. You can't have it, and no one knows you own it.
The worst part about NFTs is that literally, like,
All the
trading
people who have
hats
them are
in a video game
insufferable.
has more value because you're the owner of the hat. Like, yeah, you're the owner of the NFT, but like, I could just print it out and then it's mine.
Yeah, the thing that like on Steam, I don't think any people who like are actually serious about NFTs like actually get mad if someone screenshots. I think that's just the people who are extremely new to it and don't quite understand how it works.
Yeah. People who
But
are actually like legitimately invested in NFTs probably just do not care at this point.
the Associated Press has NFTs now.
Oh my god.
Yes, it is so the Associated Press, very good news source. This is kind of a weird decision, but extremely good news source. They have they take very good pictures, and at the end of the year, they'll have like best photos of the year. And so last year, a couple of them were, it was a picture. You've probably seen these, but the one where it's the guy walking through Minneapolis in front of a building that's on fire, holding the upside down American flag. And then it's the two old people hugging through the plastic.
Oh yeah.
Like those were some of them. I think those were from 2 years ago. But anyway, they're making stuff like that into NFTs, and they claim it's like eco bullshit. So like it's not burning
That's
down the
awful.
Amazon
That's
rainforest.
awful. That's awful.
I don't know why I hate it so much.
Oh, I know I hate it because it's environmentally terrible.
Yes, it's environmentally terrible, but the thing is I don't know why I just find it so distasteful besides the environmental. So assuming that it was completely carbon neutral, I would still probably hate it. Because
It's
the
distasteful
point
because you're paying $5,000 for a picture of a monkey.
the I think that's the reason. The point of a currency is for it to be fungible. That is literally the point.
It's not a currency.
But that's the point of a currency. The point of an asset is to be fungible. If
If-
I have gold, the point of having gold, I can buy gold, and then if I look at the new PS5 and say, I want that, I can exchange some gold for a PS5.
If I ever became disgustingly wealthy, like we're talking in the realms of like billions of dollars, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy like $800 million worth of like Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin or one of the
And then
huge
and
ones.
then put it on a hard drive and destroy it.
Keep it for 3 or 4 months, and then sell it all off at the same time immediately, and get
Just
some other
destroy
investors
the
to do it,
economy.
and just melt Bitcoin to the ground. Because I mean that's what it all is. If
Yeah,
everyone,
crypto's
if everyone decided like, oh, you know what, this has been fun, but I'm done with it, and sold at the same time, Bitcoin would drop to 0.
Yeah, because crypto's only value is the assumption that people think it's valuable.
There is no bubble. You just thought there was a bubble long enough that you thought the bubble burst, and you
that you've
sold
actually
what
made a
the bubble burst.
Yes, this is literally what happened in 2008. Banks lending money that they haven't got to other banks, and then banks lending that non-existent money to people who want to buy houses. Except this one, it's Bitcoin miners lending Bitcoin they haven't got to other Bitcoin miners who lend that to like rich people. I don't get it. It's scary.
It only ever becomes a crisis when the rich people just
Yes.
end up fueling it.
My filthy rich project would just be buying an obscene amount of like forested land and then just not doing anything with it.
99% of like corporate executives that go to prison for crimes they commit while they're executives end up going because they defrauded their investors.
Yeah, don't yeah, it's like that you could defraud anyone except your investors.
Defrauding your investors and going to jail because of it, even though you were in like a massive Ponzi scheme, is the equivalent
even
of
though,
Al
like-
Capone getting arrested over racketeering.
Yeah, it's like, yes, even though you supported child slavery in the Congo, yeah, you gypped like Jeff Bezos out of like $100. You're going to prison.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right, any shout outs before we go? I know you had Nile Red. I guess I had my hot chocolate.
And let's see. Shout out to erythritol, whatever that is, that I just
What?
drank 2 grams of in my Monster Energy.
Oh, you should probably find out. And of course, shout out to Psychic Dolphin Garage. You should listen to them.
Oh
We
yeah,
did a-
totally.
Yes. All right, I think that's about it.
Yep.
Bye.
This is on your back. The point of contention is how they act. Where you draw the line will set you free.